She shelters a freezing Hell's Angel leader. Next morning, 500 bikers stop outside her door. A widow opens her door in a deadly Wyoming blizzard and finds a freezing Hell's Angel leader collapsing on her porch. She could have locked the door and called the sheriff. But instead she drags him inside, whispering, "Every soul deserves mercy." By morning he's gone. But when the sun rises the next day, the ground shakes. 500 bikers stand outside her farmhouse, silent, engines rumbling like thunder. They say their leader told them an angel in the snow saved him. Now they've come to thank her. But the town doesn't see angels, only danger. Whispers spread. Police arrive, and buried secrets start clawing toward the light. Because one of those bikers isn't just seeking shelter, he's carrying a sin that ties him to her past in a way no one could imagine. When Mercy welcomes the outlaw, what happens when she learns the truth? Will forgiveness save them both, or destroy everything she's built? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The wind howled like a living thing that night. It clawed at the windows of Evelyn Turner's farmhouse, rattling the panes until they hummed like a church organ. Snow covered the Wyoming hills in a thick white blanket, soft and cruel all at once. Evelyn sat near the fireplace, her hands busy knitting a scarf for one of the veterans she helped at her retreat home. The light flickered across her face, showing lines carved by years of both kindness and sorrow. She had grown used to quiet nights. Her husband had been gone for 15 years, and though she still spoke to him in her prayers, the silence after those prayers always came back heavier. Outside, the storm raged harder. She could hear the wind moan through the eaves like something lost and lonely. Then came the knock. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, loud, uneven, the kind that made your heart leap before your mind could think. Evelyn froze. Her knitting dropped to the floor. She waited, breath held, but the pounding came again, louder this time. "Lord help me," she whispered. She grabbed her flashlight and opened the door just a crack. What she saw made her gasp. A man, big as a tree trunk, his beard crusted with ice, slumped against the porch rail. His jacket was torn, his lips blue. Snowflakes clung to his eyelashes. She saw the faint shimmer of a motorcycle helmet lying beside him. Without thinking, Evelyn pushed the door open and called out, "Sir, can you hear me?" He groaned, but didn't answer. His hand twitched weakly. She bent down and tried to pull him inside, but he was heavy, solid as stone. Gritting her teeth, she used every bit of her nurse's strength and faith to drag him across the threshold. The door slammed behind them with a burst of wind. "Mercy, you're frozen stiff," she said breathlessly. She unzipped his jacket, leather, worn, with a patch on the front that said, "Hell's Angels." Her heart gave a nervous jump. She'd seen the news stories, fights, drugs, police raids, but this wasn't a monster. This was a half-dead man in need. Evelyn pulled off his gloves and rubbed his hands briskly. She filled a bowl with warm water and set his feet in it, just as she'd done for soldiers long ago. His eyes fluttered open, startling gray, filled with confusion and pain. "Where am I?" His voice was rough like gravel. "Somewhere safe," she said. "You were outside in that storm. You'll stay here tonight, no arguments." He tried to sit up, but his body gave out. She pressed him gently back down with a firm hand. "Rest. You're safe." He looked around the small room, the fire, the pictures on the mantel, the Bible beside the rocking chair, then at her. "Why'd you help me?" She gave him a tired smile. "Because it's what we're supposed to do." The man blinked, as if he couldn't understand kindness. "Name's Rex," he murmured before his eyes closed again. Evelyn covered him with a quilt and sat beside him through the night. The fire crackled. Outside, the snow kept falling, burying the world in white silence. As the hours passed, she whispered prayers under her breath. She didn't know who he was or what he'd done. All she knew was that sometimes God sent people in strange packages. Near dawn, she nodded off in her chair. When she woke, the first rays of sunlight touched the frost on the window. Rex still slept, his breathing steadier now. She rose quietly, made coffee, and looked out over the white fields. The world was hushed and still. She didn't yet know that this night, this one small act of mercy, would bring 500 engines roaring to her doorstep. But for now, she was just a woman who had opened her door to a stranger. And somewhere deep inside her heart, after so many lonely winters, she felt something stir. A faint warmth, fragile but real. When she turned back toward the sleeping man by the fire, she smiled softly. "You just rest, son," she said under her breath. "The Lord's not done with either of us yet." The fire popped, throwing a shower of golden sparks into the air, and Evelyn whispered a final prayer of thanks, unaware that her simple act of compassion was about to change her entire town forever. Morning came slow, like a shy guest at the door. Pale light slid across the kitchen linoleum and climbed the farmhouse walls. The storm had not stopped. Wind still pushed at the windows. The roof creaked now and then, a tired old ship in a rough sea. Evelyn poured coffee into a chipped blue mug and watched steam curl up like a prayer. The man from the night, Rex, slept on the couch under her best quilt, the one with red stars and worn edges. His chest rose and fell in a heavy, sore rhythm. The color had returned to his lips. His beard, thawed now, showed threads of silver. She set the mug on the big oak table and checked his hands again. The skin looked angry and red from the cold, but not black, thank God. She rubbed his fingers with balm and wrapped them in a clean towel. He stirred and opened one eye. "Morning," she said softly. "Coffee's ready. Can you sit up?" He grunted, tried, and failed. She slipped an arm behind his shoulders and helped him rise. He was strong, even half frozen, dense as a sack of grain, but shaky. When he finally sat, he looked around like a man waking in a strange land. The fire snapped and sent warm light across his face. "Where am I?" he asked again, voice rough. 18 miles west of Laramie," she said. "My place. I'm Evelyn Turner." He blinked at that and nodded once. "Rex," he said, as if checking that his name still fit. "I remember," she said. "Are you hungry?" He smelled the coffee, then the bacon she had in the pan. "Yeah," he admitted, almost shy. She set a plate before him. Scrambled eggs, 2 slices of bacon, a biscuit with butter melting into it. He stared like he hadn't seen real food in days. He took a small bite, then a larger one, then ate with quick, quiet focus. While he chewed, he kept glancing at the mantel. Pictures lined it. A smiling man with kind eyes, a younger Evelyn in a white nurse's cap, children from the retreat, holding up paper hearts. "That your man?" Rex asked, nodding at the photo of the smiling man. "Tom," she said. The name moved through her mouth like a blessing she knew by heart. 15 years gone. Rex swallowed and set down his fork. "I'm sorry." "Thank you," she said, and meant it. When he finished, he wiped his mouth and tried to stand. His knees buckled. He grabbed the arm of the couch and steadied himself. "I should go," he said. "I don't want trouble finding me here." "You won't make it to the road," she said. "It's drifted over. Stay until the wind calms. I have work to do. You can rest by the fire." He stared at the door as if it might bite him. Then he nodded, once again small and quick. He sank back into the couch, hands wrapped around the coffee like it was the last warm thing on earth. The furnace chose that moment to squeal, an awful metal cry that shot through the house. Evelyn winced. "It's been doing that," she said. "I've called the man twice. He says it's fine." Rex listened, head cocked. "It's the belt slipping," he said, "or a loose pulley." "You know furnaces?" she asked. "Engines," he said, a small shrug. "Most are the same song." He stood slowly, testing his legs, and crossed to the basement door. "Show me the switch," he said. She showed him, hesitating only a second, then followed him down the narrow steps. The basement smelled like oil, cool dirt, and old apples. The furnace rattled, a grumpy animal. Rex knelt, peered into the panel, and listened again. He moved careful and sure, even with stiff fingers. He tightened a bolt, adjusted the belt with the handle of a wrench she kept on a hook, and gave the casing a light tap. The squeal faded to a steady hum. "Better," he said, not proud, just plain. Evelyn smiled despite herself. "Thank you," she said. "That sound could chase the peace right out of a house." "Peace is stubborn," he said. He caught her look and almost smiled, too. It made him look younger. They climbed back up. Snow hissed against the windows. Evelyn refilled his coffee and set a second biscuit on a plate. "You can rest now," she said. "I need to check the barn. The drifts pile up on the east wall." "I'll come," he said at once. "You can barely stand," she replied. "I can stand," he said, testing his feet again, jaw set. "And I owe you." She saw the hard line in his mouth, the old pride. She also saw the need to be useful. "All right," she said, and pulled 2 thick scarves from a peg. "Put that one around your face. No hero business. We take it slow." They pushed into the wind together. The cold hit like a slap. Snow rose past the porch steps, fluff deep as pillows. They moved one careful step at a time. The barn loomed out of the white like a ship. Rex took the shovel and cut a path along the wall, breathing in short bursts, hands still clumsy inside the gloves. Evelyn knocked ice from the eaves with a broom. When they finished, they leaned on their tools and looked across the fields. The world had vanished into a bright, roaring blur. "Looks like the end of the earth," he said. "Just winter," she said. "Spring always remembers us." Back inside, cheeks burning, they stamped off snow and warmed their hands at the fire. Rex's eyes drifted again to the mantel. He nodded at a framed flyer tucked into the corner. "What's the House of Second Chances?" he asked. "My retreat home," she said. "I take in veterans sometimes, folks who need a bed and some peace. We cook, we talk, we plant a garden in spring. We don't ask many questions." He thought about that and stared into the flames. "Why?" he asked. Not rude, honest. "Because people helped me and Tom when we needed it," she said. "Because I believe in mercy. Because people can change." He rubbed his hands together and said nothing. They passed the afternoon in quiet work. Evelyn mended a tear in a quilt. Rex sat with her at the table, cleaning his jacket with a damp cloth, working the leather like it was a live thing that needed calm hands. Once, he reached for the radio and lowered the volume during a hymn. "Sorry," he muttered, as if loud music might offend the walls. "You can turn it up if you like," she said. "It's fine," he answered, eyes on the window. Later, she cooked a simple stew, the smell of onion and thyme filling the room. At supper, the wind eased a little. Rex ate slow and careful now, as if the hunger had stepped back. "Why were you riding in this?" she asked, gentle but direct. He set down his spoon. "Got separated from my men," he said. "Took a wrong road. I thought I could beat the storm." He rubbed his knuckles. I was wrong. Where were you headed? Nowhere that matters, he said, voice low. He met her eyes and held them. It's better if you don't know. She heard the weight in that and decided to leave it where it lay. All right, she said. Then we stick to what does matter. You're warm, you're fed, you'll rest here tonight. In the morning we'll see the road. He nodded once, grateful and guarded both. After dishes, she lit a lamp and took her Bible from the side table. She didn't announce it. She simply opened to a page worn soft by years of fingers and began to read, voice slow and even. It was a passage about strangers and bread and open doors. She did not preach. She read like someone sending a letter to a friend. Rex sat in the firelight, elbows on his knees, and stared into the flames. He did not look at her, but he listened. His face shifted now and then. Surprise, doubt, something like longing. When she finished, the room seemed fuller, as if the words had weight and warmth. Thank you, he said, almost a whisper. For what? She asked. For not asking me to leave, he said. For the words. You're welcome, she said. She made up the couch with fresh sheets and an extra blanket. She left a glass of water and set the lamp low. If you need anything in the night, knock on the wall, she said, tapping the wood. It carries sound. He lay down slow, as if every movement gave away a secret. Good night, he said, eyes half closed. Good night, she answered. She stood in the doorway a moment longer and watched his chest rise and fall. The wind had dropped to a tired sigh. Somewhere in the deep of the house, the newly quiet furnace hummed, steady as a heart. Evelyn turned off the lamp and walked to her room. Before she slept, she looked once at Tom's photo. We're all right, she whispered. A stranger under our roof tonight. Keep watch. In the front room, the man on the couch stirred, then settled again. The storm had not yet spent itself, but the house held. Warmth gathered in the corners. Morning would come, and with it choices neither of them could see yet. For now, the night kept its simple gifts: bread, a blanket, and a light that did not go out. The storm broke during the night. By morning, the whole world lay hushed beneath white drifts that caught the sun like crushed glass. Evelyn stood at her window, coffee mug in hand, and took in the silence. Her breath made a small fog on the pane. The valley looked clean, untouched, as if God had wiped the slate and started over. Behind her, the old couch creaked. Rex stirred, pulling the quilt tighter around his shoulders. Bright, he muttered, squinting at the window. Blinding, she said. You ever seen snow this deep? He shook his head and sat up slowly. Not this kind. Looks soft. Bet it's mean. She smiled at that. You learn quick. While he dressed, careful, slow movements, testing sore muscles, she fixed breakfast again. Oatmeal, honey, a little butter melting on top. He thanked her without looking up, and ate in silence. When he finished, he rose and went to the door. The cold air bit his face when he opened it. He stepped onto the porch, boots crunching. He turned full circle, taking in the white fields, the fences swallowed by snow, the roof of the barn like a buried mountain. I should check my bike, he said. It's under 3 feet of snow, she told him. You won't dig it out today. Maybe not, he said, but it's mine. They went together. She watched him move through the drifts, shoulders set, breath puffing white. When they reached the small barn, he pushed open the door and found the bike tipped on its side, half covered in frost. He crouched and brushed the chrome with his gloved hand, slow and gentle, like greeting an old friend. Evelyn stayed back, arms crossed for warmth. You love that thing, she said. Built it myself, he answered. every bolt, every wire. "It's beautiful," she said, and meant it. She didn't understand engines, but she understood care. Inside, the air smelled of hay and cold metal. Rex ran his hands over the gas tank. "Guess it's not going anywhere," he said with a small laugh that almost sounded like peace. They walked back to the house. When they reached the porch, Evelyn's old generator sputtered and groaned. The lights flickered, then steadied, then flickered again. "Been doing that all winter," she said. "Guess it's as tired as I am." Rex set down his gloves. "Let me look." "You fixed my furnace. You don't need to—" "I want to," he said simply. She led him to the shed, where the generator sat. He knelt beside it, listening to the rattle, the uneven pulse. "Loose wire," he said. He rummaged through her old toolbox, found pliers, and worked for a few minutes. When the hum evened out, he leaned back and wiped his hands. "Try it now." Evelyn flipped the switch. The lights inside the house glowed steady, strong. She looked back at him, surprised. "You're good." "Had to learn," he said. "Nobody else fixes things for you on the road." They went back inside, shaking the cold off their boots. Evelyn made more coffee. The kitchen filled with warmth again, and something new. Ease. They talked in short bits. He told her about growing up in small towns, never staying long. She told him about her work at the retreat home, how she missed hearing laughter in the house. "Your husband," Rex said after a while, eyes on the fire. "You said he was a soldier?" "Vietnam," she said. "Came home with a limp and a smile. We had 30 good years. What happened?" His voice was soft, careful. She stared at the flames. "A drunk driver hit him on the highway one night, never stopped." She paused. "They never found who did it." Rex swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "I stopped asking why a long time ago," she said. "Some things you hand to God." They sat quiet for a while. The clock ticked, the fire popped. Then he said, "I lost my brother in prison. Fights, bad choices. I never forgave myself for not helping him sooner." "Then we both know how guilt feels," she said. He nodded. "Yeah." Outside, the wind sighed through the trees. Evelyn stood and pulled on her coat. "I need to clear the path to the mailbox before it ices over." "I'll help." He shoveled while she spread salt. When they finished, their faces were pink and their laughter fogged the air. She hadn't laughed like that since Tom died. It startled her how easy it was. Inside again, she poured them each a mug of cocoa and set out a plate of ginger cookies she kept for guests. Rex looked out the window at the hills gleaming under the sun. "It's quiet here," he said. "Too quiet sometimes," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "Not anymore." Late afternoon slipped toward evening. The light through the curtains turned gold. Rex stood by the window, his back to her, and said, "You ever think about leaving? Going somewhere warmer?" "This is home," she said. "Tom and I built it with our own hands." He nodded slowly. "Guess that means something." "It means everything." He picked up his jacket from the chair. "Storm's over. Roads'll open tomorrow. I should move on." She felt a small ache at that. "You don't have to rush," she said. "You could stay another night. Warm up proper." He shook his head. "I've stayed too long already." He slipped the jacket on, wincing as the cold leather touched his neck. Then he pulled a folded note from his pocket and set it on the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Just a thank you," he said. "Nobody's ever prayed for me before." She looked down, then back up, but he was already stepping out into the pale evening light. The sound of his boots faded into the snow. A moment later, the low growl of his motorcycle echoed down the road until it vanished. Evelyn stood in the doorway, watching the trail he left behind. The sun dipped low, painting the world pink and orange. For a long time she stayed there, her breath misting in the air, the note crumpled gently in her hand. When she finally unfolded it inside, she read the words again. "Thank you for not turning me away." Below it, a rough sketch of angel wings. She smiled, though her eyes blurred. "You're welcome, whoever you are," she whispered. She placed the note beside her Bible on the mantel, lit a single candle, and prayed that wherever that broken man went, the warmth would follow him. Outside, twilight deepened, and the snow glowed, faintly blue, under the first stars. Evelyn closed her eyes and listened. For the first time in many winters, the house didn't feel empty. It felt expectant, like something good was coming, though she couldn't yet name it. Evelyn woke before dawn to a strange vibration under the floorboards. For a moment she thought it was the furnace again, or the storm returning. Then the rumble grew louder, steady, deep and alive. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. It sounded like thunder, but not from the sky. She hurried to the window and pulled back the curtain. Her breath caught. The narrow road below her farmhouse was filled with headlights, hundreds of them. The sound of engines rolled through the valley, shaking the snow from the trees. She slipped her robe on and hurried to the porch, boots crunching in the frost. What she saw made her knees go weak. The front yard was crowded with motorcycles lined in perfect rows, stretching as far as she could see. The engines idled low, a heavy hum filling the air. Men and women stood beside their bikes, faces hidden by helmets and scarves. And there, at the front, sat the same man she'd taken in 2 nights before. Rex, Bear Maddox. He cut the engine and dismounted, walking toward her with snow crunching under his boots. His crew followed him like shadows. Evelyn clutched the doorframe, too stunned to speak. "Ma'am," Rex said quietly, "I didn't mean for this to happen." "What in heaven's name is all this?" she whispered. "My brothers," he said. "They came to thank you." Behind him, one of the bikers lifted a handmade banner from his handlebars. Painted in black letters were the words, "An angel in the snow saved our leader." Evelyn's hand went to her heart. "Oh, Lord." "They heard about what you did," Rex went on. "They wanted to see for themselves the woman who took in a stranger when everyone else would have slammed the door." A few of the riders stepped forward, offering nods and quiet greetings. They weren't loud or rowdy like she expected, just solemn. One man placed a small bouquet of wildflowers on her porch rail. Another handed her a patch that read, "Faith rides free." But as more bikes rolled up behind them, the sound became impossible to ignore. Across the valley, lights flicked on in houses. Curtains moved. People started gathering on the road, whispering, pointing. Within an hour, Sheriff Keene's patrol car pulled up, red and blue lights flashing against the snow. The sheriff climbed out, jaw tight. "Mrs. Turner, what's going on here?" I don't rightly know," she said. "They just showed up." He turned to Rex. "You can't bring 500 bikers into a town like this without warning. Folks are scared out of their wits." Rex's voice stayed calm. "We're not here for trouble, Sheriff. Just gratitude." "Gratitude doesn't block highways," the sheriff snapped. "You'll disperse by sundown, or I'll start towing bikes." Tension crackled in the air. Evelyn could feel it like static. She stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the men around her. "Please," she said. "Let's not make this worse. No one's hurt. No one's breaking anything." Rex looked down at her. "You're right. We'll keep peace." The sheriff sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You've got until dark," he muttered, then left in a swirl of exhaust. When the car disappeared down the road, Rex turned to his crew. "Keep it quiet. No engines past the fence line. Help where you can." The bikers nodded. Some began shoveling snow from the road. Others passed out hot coffee from thermoses. The strange sight of outlaws doing good softened the edge of the morning. Evelyn stood on her porch, watching. It was chaos, but there was something strangely beautiful about it. The sight of men and women, rough and scarred, working together in the cold. After a while, Rex joined her on the steps. "I didn't mean to bring this on you," he said. "I just told them what you did. Guess they took it to heart." She studied his face. The lines around his eyes were deeper than before, but his expression was open, almost gentle. "You said you were leaving," she said. "I was," he admitted. "But when I told my crew about you, they said they had to meet the woman who'd shown mercy to one of us. It's not something we see much of." "You put me in quite a spot," she said, but her tone softened with a small smile. "I'll fix it," he promised. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Reporters from nearby towns arrived, snapping pictures of motorcycles against snowbanks. Church folks whispered that the devil himself had come riding into Laramie Valley. Martha called from the next farm over, scolding Evelyn for bringing danger to her doorstep. By noon, the smell of stew drifted from Evelyn's kitchen. She had decided that if 500 people were going to sit outside her house, they weren't going hungry. She called the veterans from her retreat and asked them to help serve. Soon the air filled with the sound of clanking spoons, laughter, and murmured prayers before meals. That evening, as the sun bled into the snowy hills, Rex approached her again. "We'll be gone by morning," he said. "Didn't mean to stir up trouble." She looked at the hundreds of bikes glowing under the sunset. "You might have done more good than harm," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "You think so?" "I think people need reminders that hearts can change," she said. Rex took a deep breath. "Then maybe I'll stick around a day or two, help clean up." She nodded, her heart unexpectedly warm. "You do that." When darkness fell, the engines went silent. The valley that had once been filled with fear now hummed with something new. Hope wrapped in uncertainty. Evelyn stood on her porch long after everyone had gone to sleep, her breath rising in soft clouds. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Lord, what are you doing here?" The wind carried no answer, only the faint echo of engines fading into the night. By morning, word had spread faster than wildfire. Every store clerk, mail carrier, and church lady in Laramie Valley had something to say about the old widow who harbored an outlaw army. Evelyn couldn't even step onto her porch without feeling the weight of curious eyes. Reporters still lingered at the end of the road. Cameras aimed at her humble farmhouse like she was some sort of legend or criminal. She set a pot of coffee on the stove and tried to ignore it. The bikers, for their part, kept their word. No loud engines, no shouting, no fights. They were camped along the road, helping one another fix flats, clear drifts, and haul trash from ditches. A few of them even repaired her neighbor's broken fence before breakfast. Rex came to the door just after sunrise, knocking softly like a man afraid of breaking the peace. Evelyn opened it, still wearing her old flannel robe. "Morning," he said. "We're making breakfast down by the road. Eggs and whatever we can spare. You should come." "I'll eat here," she said, though her tone was warm. "You've already got folks talking." He looked down, a faint smile tugging his beard. "They'll talk anyway." He started to turn, but she said, "Rex, wait." When he looked back, she asked, "What are you really trying to do here?" His gray eyes softened. "Make things right, somehow." That answer settled between them like fresh snow, quiet, heavy, and honest. She nodded toward the kitchen. "Then start with coffee. Everyone thinks better with a cup in hand. Inside, they sat across from each other at the wooden table. She poured him a mug, steam curling between them. They say your people scare them, she said. But I've seen worse in my clinic years ago. Men torn apart by war, not by leather jackets. Rex stared into his cup. They got reasons to be scared. Some of us used to be rough. I used to be rough. You still could be, she said, but you're not here. Outside, the engines rumbled faintly. The smell of frying bacon drifted in from the road. Evelyn set her cup down and sighed. The town needs to see who you really are. Maybe then they'll stop shaking every time they hear a motor. Rex tilted his head. You suggesting we hold a town picnic? I'm suggesting, she said, that you help them before they have time to hate you. That afternoon, she found herself walking with Rex down Main Street. The bikers had already started clearing sidewalks buried under the last snow. They fixed potholes with shovels and patches of gravel. A few old-timers watched from porches, skeptical but silent. When they reached the general store, Martha Hill came storming out, apron flapping in the wind. "Evelyn Turner," she scolded. "You've lost your mind. Half the county's afraid to come into town." Evelyn smiled gently. "They'll calm down once they see good come of it." "Good? From them?" Martha pointed at Rex. "He looks like trouble on two legs." Rex stayed silent, eyes lowered. Evelyn stepped closer to Martha. "You once told me God sends people to test our love. Maybe this is that test." Martha folded her arms, lips pressed tight, but something in her eyes softened. "You're braver than I am," she muttered. "Just stubborn," Evelyn said. Later that evening, the bikers and a few locals gathered at the church hall for stew and bread. Pastor Samuel Reeves led a short prayer for peace. When he finished, he looked around at the mismatched crowd, farmers, bikers, widows, and drifters, and said, "Seems to me heaven's got a sense of humor." Laughter rippled through the room, small but real. Afterward, Rex helped stack chairs while Evelyn wiped tables. The pastor approached him quietly. "You're welcome here, son," he said. "But know this town's been hurt before. You do right and they'll come around." Rex nodded. "I aim to." When the hall emptied, Evelyn locked the door behind her. The stars above the church shone like 1,000 tiny promises. She breathed in the cold air and felt something shift inside her, like the ground settling after a quake. They walked back to her farmhouse in silence. When they reached the porch, she turned to him. "You ever think maybe you ended up here for a reason?" He hesitated, his breath fogging in the night. "If I did, I'm not sure I deserve it." "Maybe none of us do," she said. "That's what makes grace what it is." He met her gaze, and for a long second, neither looked away. Then he said softly, "Good night, ma'am." "Good night, Rex." She watched him walk toward the road, where faint firelight glowed from the bikers' camp. He moved slower now, like a man carrying something heavy, but finally knowing which direction to take it. Inside, Evelyn leaned against the door and closed her eyes. The house still smelled of stew and coffee. Outside, laughter rose from the camp, warm against the winter dark. The town was on edge, yes, but something new had begun. Something that looked, in the smallest way, like hope. A week passed, and the snow began to melt into muddy ribbons along the road. What once felt like winter's endless hold now softened into puddles and the sound of dripping eaves. Evelyn could smell spring trying to push through. But though the frost was fading, the tension in town was not. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. At the post office, at church, even at the grocery store, people glanced her way and lowered their voices. "That's her," someone would murmur. "The woman who's harboring the bikers." She kept her head high, answering gossip with kindness and small smiles, but her heart grew heavy with each sideways glance. When Pastor Samuel called that Sunday morning and asked if she and the bikers could attend a town meeting at the church, she hesitated. "You think that's wise?" she asked. "I think it's necessary," the pastor said. "People need to see faces instead of rumors." So that evening, she rode with Rex in his pickup truck down the road into town. The headlights cut through the damp twilight, shining on wet pavement and melting snow. Evelyn clasped her hands in her lap. "You don't have to come if you don't want to," she said quietly. "I started this," Rex replied. "I'm not hiding from it." The church parking lot was full when they arrived. People stood outside the entrance in small knots, coats buttoned tight, eyes wary. Inside, the air smelled of wood polish and coffee, but the tension hung thick. Pastor Samuel greeted them at the door, offering a warm but tired smile. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Let's keep this civil, all right?" Evelyn nodded. Rex gave a short nod, too. They took seats near the front. Behind them, murmurs rolled like low thunder. A woman whispered, "Look at them. Leather jackets in the Lord's house." Evelyn turned and smiled at her gently. "Everyone's welcome in the Lord's house," she said. The woman flushed and looked away. Pastor Samuel stepped up to the pulpit, cleared his throat, and began. "Friends, we've had a strange couple of weeks. A blizzard, unexpected visitors, and now a question we can't ignore. What does it mean to show mercy in our own backyard?" He spoke calmly, his voice carrying over the pews. "I invited everyone here tonight to talk, not to accuse. Mrs. Turner has opened her door to strangers. Many of you have strong feelings about that. Let's speak them, but let's remember to speak with grace." The first man to stand was Mr. Dobson, who ran the hardware store. "With respect, Pastor," he said, "that woman's kindness is bringing trouble to our town. We've got folks afraid to let their kids play outside. We don't want Laramie Valley turning into a biker stop." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Evelyn folded her hands tighter. Rex stood then. The room went still. His tall frame filled the aisle, his voice deep but even. "I get it," he said. "You don't trust us, I wouldn't either. We've done things, some of us worse than others. But we're not here to cause trouble. We're here because one woman didn't see us as trash." A hush fell. He went on. "When she opened her door that night, she didn't ask where I'd come from or what I'd done. She just helped. And that did something to me, something I can't explain. So if you want us gone, we'll go. But don't call her wrong for doing what most of us forgot how to do." He sat down. The silence that followed felt endless. Evelyn's eyes brimmed, but she blinked the tears back. Finally, Pastor Samuel looked at her. "Would you like to say anything, Mrs. Turner?" She rose slowly. The wood of the pew creaked under her hands. "I'm not brave," she said softly. "I just saw someone cold and hurt and thought, what if it was my Tom out there? Wouldn't I pray someone opened the door for him too?" Her voice trembled, but she continued, "I'm not asking anyone to take sides. I'm just asking us to remember that mercy doesn't ask for credentials." A few people nodded. Others avoided her eyes. Then, from the back, Martha Hill stood. "I still think it's risky," she said bluntly, "but maybe the Lord sent them here for a reason." She crossed her arms and added, "Maybe he's testing if we'll practice what we preach." A few chuckles broke the tension. The pastor smiled slightly. "That's the spirit, Martha." The meeting ended with prayer. Some people left without a word. Others lingered, shaking hands with the bikers, offering cautious smiles. Outside, the air was crisp, the stars bright. Evelyn walked with Rex towards the truck. "You handled yourself well," she said. "I just told the truth," he answered. "Didn't think they'd listen." "They will," she said. "Maybe not today, but they will." They climbed into the truck. On the way home, they passed fields shining with leftover snow. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Rex said quietly, "You really believe people can change, don't you?" "I have to," she said. "Otherwise I'd stop praying." He nodded, eyes fixed on the road. "Maybe you ought to pray for me then." "I already do," she said simply. The headlights stretched across the dark hills. The wind had quieted, and the world felt gentler somehow. When they reached the farmhouse, Evelyn paused before getting out. "You could take off that patch once in a while," she said softly. "You don't always have to wear your past on your chest." Rex looked down at the Hells Angels emblem, fingers brushing the stitching. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe I don't." He unpinned the patch, set it on the seat beside him, and followed her inside. For the first time since that stormy night, Evelyn didn't feel like she was sheltering a stranger. She felt like she was watching a man slowly find his way home. The days lengthened, and the snow gave way to brown grass and the faint smell of thawing earth. For the first time in months, the air carried warmth instead of frost. The bikers, once feared, now worked side by side with the townsfolk. They helped repaint fences, cleared out ditches, and even repaired the old community center that had stood abandoned since the fire 5 years before. Evelyn came by each morning with baskets of sandwiches and coffee for the workers. Her laughter mixed with the sound of hammers and saws, rising over the hum of engines parked neatly at the edge of town. Rex had become the heart of it all, steady, patient, and humble. He wore plain jeans now, not his jacket with the skull patch. When people spoke to him, they didn't see a biker anymore. They saw a man trying to make things right. But even as life brightened, something dark and restless stirred inside him. Each night, when the laughter faded and the others went to bed, he wandered into Evelyn's workshop, the one behind her house, to fix whatever needed fixing. It became his habit, tools in hand, oil lamp glowing low. The smell of sawdust and motor oil reminded him of another time, another man who used to work beside him, his brother. One evening, Evelyn found him there, sitting at the workbench with his head bowed. She held 2 mugs of tea, steam curling between them. "You missed supper?" she said gently. He looked up, shadows under his eyes. "Wasn't hungry?" "Working too hard," she said. "Even angels need rest, you know." He almost smiled, then looked away. "Don't call me that." She set a mug beside him. "You've done more good these past weeks than most folks do in a lifetime. Why not take credit for it?" He let out a long breath, the kind that carried years of weight. "Because you don't know what I've done, Evelyn." She tilted her head, the warmth in her expression steady but curious. "Then tell me." His hands shook slightly as he turned the wrench in his fingers. "You ever carry something so heavy you can't even pray, right? You open your mouth and nothing comes out but guilt?" She stepped closer. "Every soul carries something like that." He swallowed hard. "Not like this." The lamplight flickered over his face, carving deep lines into the skin that had seen too many roads. "That night you told me about your husband," he said quietly. "The hit and run." Her hand stilled. "Yes. I was the one driving that car." The room fell silent, except for the faint hiss of the lamp. He went on, voice breaking. 15 years ago, I was drunk, wild, thought I was invincible. He came out of nowhere on that stretch of road. I stopped for half a second, just half, and then I ran. I ran like a coward. I saw his face once in the mirror and I never forgot it. When I found out later he'd died, I tried to drink it away, ride it away. But it followed me. It's why I joined the club. I thought if I kept moving, I'd never have to look in a mirror again. Evelyn's knees weakened. She steadied herself against the work table. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. He looked up at her then, eyes full of tears he didn't bother to hide. "I didn't come here by accident," he said. "I think I was sent here to face it." For a long time, neither spoke. The wind moaned through the crack in the window. Evelyn felt her chest ache with a storm of emotions: anger, sorrow, disbelief. She thought of Tom's laugh, his gentle hands, the empty years that followed his death. Her voice trembled. "You drove away." "I did," he whispered, "and I've hated myself every day since." She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, eyes stinging. The man before her, the one she had fed, prayed for, defended, had stolen everything from her once. And yet, as she looked at him now, broken and confessing under the dim light, she saw not the monster she'd imagined for years, but a man drowning in remorse. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I just couldn't keep lying to you. You deserved to know." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You could have stayed silent," she said. "I couldn't, not anymore." The silence stretched. The clock ticked in the corner, a slow reminder of every moment that had led to this one. Finally, Evelyn stepped back, her face pale. "I need time," she said softly. He nodded, eyes down. "Take all you need." She left the workshop without another word. Outside, the night air hit her like cold water. The stars above seemed sharper, crueler. She walked to the porch and sat down, her hands gripping the wooden rail until her knuckles whitened. She wanted to scream, to curse, to demand why God had brought this man into her home, this man who carried her husband's death in his hands. But when she tried to pray, no words came, only tears. Back in the workshop, Rex sat alone, staring at the wrench on the table. His shoulders shook as silent sobs racked through him. He hadn't expected her to forgive him. He didn't even know if he deserved to live. But telling her the truth felt like standing before fire and choosing not to run. That night, neither of them slept. Evelyn watched dawn creep over the horizon, painting the snow with pale gold. The ache in her heart was sharp, but somewhere beneath it, faint and fragile, was a whisper she couldn't ignore. "Forgive, as you have been forgiven." She didn't know if she could. Not yet. But she knew this. Grace had already begun its work, even in the ashes of her pain. 2 days passed after the confession, and the quiet between them was heavy enough to feel in the air. The bikers still worked on the community center, laughing and hammering away, but the warmth that had filled Evelyn's home was gone. She kept busy, cooking, cleaning, praying, but every sound reminded her of Rex's voice in the workshop, the trembling words that had split her heart open. When she saw him helping the others in town, she couldn't bring herself to speak to him. He didn't try either. He just kept working, face set in silent focus, as if repentance were something you could build with your hands. The calendar on the wall showed December 24th. Christmas Eve. Normally, Evelyn would have been baking pies, stringing lights on the porch, and inviting the veterans from her retreat for supper. But this year, her spirit felt dim. That morning, Pastor Samuel stopped by, stamping snow off his boots. "The community center's ready," he said with a hopeful smile. "We're planning a Christmas Eve gathering there tonight. Music, prayer, food. We could use you, Evelyn." She hesitated. "I don't know if I'm fit for celebrating." "You're the reason we have something to celebrate," he said gently. "You showed this town what mercy looks like. Don't hide away now." When he left, she stood by the window for a long while. Outside, the town's children were building snowmen. The bikers helped hang lights on the new roof of the center, their laughter echoing through the crisp air. She thought of Tom, how he used to hum carols while fixing the fence, how he would have wanted her to keep her heart open. That evening, as the sky turned soft with twilight, she wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and walked into town. The community center glowed with light. Strings of bulbs hung from the windows, and wreaths made from pine branches decorated the doors. Inside, the air was warm, with the smell of cinnamon and cider. Bikers and townsfolk mingled, an impossible sight only weeks before. Someone strummed a guitar softly while children danced in front of the fire. When Evelyn stepped in, conversations paused, then resumed with smiles. People greeted her warmly, offering plates of food and hugs. Martha Hill pressed a cup of cocoa into her hand. "Glad you came," Martha whispered. "You started something good here." Evelyn smiled faintly, though her eyes kept drifting to the door. As the night went on, Pastor Samuel gathered everyone in a circle. "Before we eat, I'd like to thank the folks who rebuilt this place," he said. "It took strength, patience, and forgiveness to bring us here." Evelyn looked around. The bikers nodded modestly, hands tucked in pockets, but one face was missing. Then the door opened, letting in a gust of cold air. Rex stood there. Clean-shaven, wearing a simple wool coat instead of leather, he held a small Bible in his hands. His eyes searched the crowd until they met hers. The room went still. Even the children stopped moving. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the floorboards. "I need to say something," he said, "and I need to say it here." Pastor Samuel gave a slow nod. Rex took a breath. "Most of you know me as the man who led that biker gang, the one who brought chaos here. But before that, I was worse. I hurt people. I broke things that can't be fixed." He swallowed hard. 15 years ago, I made a choice that destroyed a family, a choice I've carried every day since. And tonight, I need to tell the truth. A murmur spread through the room, but no one interrupted. Rex's voice trembled. "The man I killed in that hit and run was Evelyn Turner's husband." Gasps filled the air. Martha dropped her cup. Someone whispered a prayer. All eyes turned to Evelyn, who stood frozen, her hand gripping her shawl. Rex continued, "I ran from it. I tried to bury it under noise and anger. But then God sent me to her door. He sent me to the woman I'd wronged most in this world. She gave me food, shelter, and grace when I deserved none of it." He looked at her. Again, tears in his eyes. "I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted the truth to breathe before I die." For a long, trembling moment, silence filled the hall. Even the fire seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn stepped forward. Her steps were slow, measured, as if she were walking on water that could break at any second. She stopped before him, her face wet with tears. "You took my husband from me," she said softly. "You took years I can never get back. But you've also reminded me of something Tom always said, that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom." She reached out and laid a hand on his arm. "So I forgive you, Rex Maddox. Not because you deserve it, but because my heart can't heal if I don't." A single tear slipped down his cheek. The crowd stood still, watching a moment they would never forget. Pastor Samuel's voice broke the silence. "Amen." And then, slowly, the room joined in. "Amen," they whispered. "Amen." Evelyn turned to the crowd. "We've all lost something," she said, "but tonight we celebrate what we've found: grace, community, and a new beginning." Someone began to sing Silent Night. Others joined, voices blending in gentle harmony. Rex stood beside her, head bowed, tears shining in the glow of Christmas lights. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and steady. Children ran to the windows, laughing and pointing. As the song ended, Evelyn looked toward the sky through the frosted glass. "Tom," she whispered, "I think you can rest now." Rex looked at her, voice low. "You saved me twice, once from the cold and once from myself." She smiled through her tears. "No, God did. I just opened the door." The hall filled with laughter, music, and light. That night, as snow blanketed the valley once more, the whole town felt changed, like something broken had finally been mended. The woman who forgave the man who took everything from her became the heart of a miracle no one would ever forget. Christmas morning dawned quiet and clear. The snow from the night before lay untouched, glistening like fine sugar over the rooftops. Evelyn woke early, the echoes of last night's songs still warm in her heart. For the first time in years, she felt peace, a deep, still peace that reached all the way into her bones. She brewed a pot of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The world seemed new. The community center stood proud in the distance, smoke curling from its chimney, and the faint sound of laughter carried over the cold air. But down the road, she noticed something strange, a pair of dark SUVs and a sheriff's car pulling up beside the camp where the bikers had stayed. Her breath caught. Within minutes, the peaceful morning shattered under the harsh cry of sirens. She set her cup down and started walking fast, boots crunching in the snow. By the time she reached the road, half the town had gathered, murmuring in confusion. Sheriff Keene stood beside the vehicles, his breath fogging as he spoke to a man in a dark suit, an FBI badge glinting on his chest. Rex stood apart from the others, his hands already cuffed. His face was calm, his eyes steady. "What is this?" Evelyn demanded, pushing her way through the crowd. Keene sighed, avoiding her gaze. "Federal warrants," he said. "They've been tracking his club for years. Old crimes, some assault charges, illegal transport, things like that. They want him brought in for questioning." Rex spoke before she could. "It's all right, Evelyn." "No, it's not," she said sharply. "You just stood in front of the whole town last night and confessed your soul. You helped rebuild that center. He shook his head gently. "It's time I stopped running. Maybe this is part of making it right." The FBI agent stepped forward. "Ma'am, please stand back." She ignored him and faced Rex. "You don't have to go like this," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I do. You taught me that the truth has to be lived, not just spoken." Her eyes burned. "Will you be safe?" "I'll be all right," he said. "You gave me something stronger than freedom." The agent led him towards the car. The crowd fell silent. The rumble of engines and the crunch of boots on snow were the only sounds. As they opened the car door, Rex turned one last time. "Thank you," he said quietly, voice carrying over the frozen air. "For seeing me when no one else would." Tears rolled down Evelyn's cheeks. "You find your peace," she called after him. "And don't you forget who you are now." He nodded once before ducking into the car. The door shut with a hollow click. The convoy rolled away down the long, winding road until the sound faded into the hills. For a long moment, no one moved. Even Sheriff Keene stood silent, hat in his hands. Finally, Martha Hill placed a trembling hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "He'll be all right," she said softly. "You changed him." Evelyn shook her head, tears glistening. "No, Martha, God did. I just gave him room." That afternoon, the bikers packed their camp quietly. Some hugged her before they left. Others simply tipped their heads in respect. Big Hank, Rex's right hand, lingered. "He said he wanted you to have this." He handed her a small, worn Bible. Inside, on the first page, Rex had written, For Evelyn, who showed me the way home." She closed the cover gently, pressing it to her chest. That night, the house felt too quiet. The Christmas lights twinkled faintly, their glow soft against the window pane. Evelyn sat in her rocking chair by the fire, the Bible open on her lap. She whispered a prayer, not for herself this time, but for the man who had taken her husband's life, then given her town back its heart. "Lord," she said, voice trembling, "keep him strong. Let him know he's not forgotten, and let him see what mercy can do." The wind outside was calm. Siwaj. Stars shone bright and close, like the night sky itself was listening. Evelyn wiped her tears, closed the Bible, and whispered, "Amen." She didn't know what would come next, but deep inside, she trusted that grace, once given, never truly left. It only grew, waiting for its next open door. Spring came slow to Wyoming, greening the edges of the fields and melting the last of the snow. Evelyn still rose early, brewed coffee, and checked her mailbox at the end of the long dirt road. Most mornings, there was nothing but bills and church flyers. But once a week, a letter arrived, stamped from the state correctional facility, written in a neat, heavy hand. Rex wrote about the days inside. The noise, the gray walls, the men who'd lost all hope. He told her how he'd started a small Bible study in the yard, using the same words she'd once read aloud by her fireplace. "They listen," he wrote, "because they can tell I mean it now." He said he prayed every night for the family he'd hurt, and the woman who'd taught him that mercy could live even in a place like this. Evelyn answered every letter. She wrote about the town rebuilding, about the bikers who now came back each weekend to fix roofs or deliver food to shut-ins. She told him that the retreat was growing, that people were calling it the House of Second Chances after what he'd inspired. She ended each letter the same way. Keep walking toward the light, one day at a time. As the months passed, the townsfolk stopped whispering when they saw her at the market. Even Martha began bringing pies to the retreat again. The church pews filled, and Pastor Samuel often quoted Rex's words during sermons about redemption. On warm afternoons, Evelyn sat on her porch, the stack of his letters tied neatly with ribbon beside her Bible. Each one carried pieces of grace, proof that change was real, that pain could turn into purpose. Sometimes, as the sun set over the hills, she whispered toward the horizon, "You're not forgotten." And in her heart, she believed he could somehow hear it. A full year passed before the valley truly warmed again. The snow vanished from the fields, leaving behind soft grass and the smell of pine in the wind. Evelyn's retreat bustled with life, veterans planting seedlings, children chasing dogs through the yard, and townsfolk dropping by to volunteer. What had once been her quiet refuge was now a living, breathing home. That morning, she stood by her rose garden, trimming the buds that had survived winter. Her hands moved slowly, tenderly, though her thoughts were far away, on a man behind stone walls. She still wrote to him every week, even when he couldn't reply right away. His last letter had ended with 4 words that stayed with her. "I'm coming home soon." By afternoon, the retreat's anniversary celebration began. Tables lined the yard, covered in bright quilts and baskets of bread. The pastor prayed, veterans sang old songs, and laughter carried across the hills. Evelyn sat beneath the oak tree, soaking in the warmth. She almost didn't notice the low rumble at first, deep and familiar. Then she looked up. Down the road came a line of motorcycles, polished and shining in the sun. At the front rode a single pickup truck. The door opened and a tall man stepped out. Clean, humble, wearing plain denim and a cross around his neck. Rex. He walked toward her slowly, eyes full of emotion. No words passed between them at first. He simply reached for the small trowel in her hand and knelt beside her in the garden. Together they planted a rose bush, soil rich and dark between their fingers. "For every soul you've saved," he said quietly, "including mine." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Welcome home, Rex." Around them the crowd clapped and cheered, but she barely heard. The warmth of the sun, the smell of roses, the steady beat of engines, it all blended into one perfect moment of grace. Evening rolled in gentle and golden, soft as a prayer. The last light of the sun washed over the hills, turning the snowmelt to rivers of gold. The House of Second Chances hummed with life, people talking, laughing, eating together under strings of warm yellow bulbs. Music drifted from an old guitar. Someone clapped along, others joined in, their voices weaving through the twilight air like thread in a quilt. Evelyn moved among the tables, her shawl fluttering in the breeze. She carried trays of cornbread, hugged old veterans, and kissed children on the forehead. She couldn't help smiling as she watched the town that had once shunned the bikers now welcome them as family. Big Hank was showing a boy how to tie a knot with rope. Martha Hill sat beside Pastor Samuel, arguing over how much sugar belonged in lemonade. It all felt like a dream, one she hadn't dared hope for when she first opened her door that snowy night. Rex worked quietly near the food table, sleeves rolled to his elbows, passing out plates and refilling cups. His laugh came easy now, deep and steady, carrying across the yard. When someone asked for a story about the road, he told one. Clean, funny, full of life. The old tattoos on his arms glowed faintly under the hanging lights, no longer signs of rebellion, but proof of a journey survived. When supper ended, Pastor Samuel stood on the porch steps. The crowd hushed as he lifted a glass of cider. "To grace," he said, "to the power of mercy, to a woman who opened her door when the world told her to bolt it shut. Because of her, this town remembers what kindness can build." Applause broke out. Cheers, whistles, laughter. Evelyn blushed, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Oh, hush now," she said with a watery smile, but her heart swelled with gratitude. As night deepened, the stars spilled across the sky, bright and endless. Lanterns glowed around the yard. The sound of engines started softly, a low hum as dozens of motorcycles came to life, instead of chaos. The sound was peaceful, steady, like the rhythm of a prayer. Rex walked up to the porch where Evelyn stood. He looked different in the starlight, freer, lighter, his eyes no longer shadowed by guilt. "Never thought I'd see a night like this," he said quietly. "Neither did I," she replied. "Funny how God uses the storms to clear our skies." He gave a soft laugh. "Sometimes angels come wearing leather." She chuckled, touching his arm. "And sometimes the lost end up leading others home." For a moment, they stood together in silence, watching the riders form a slow circle in the field, their headlights glowing like halos in the dark. The rumble rolled through the valley, a hymn of redemption. Rex turned to her, voice rough but steady. "I'll spend the rest of my days trying to be worthy of what you gave me." Evelyn smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "You already are." Then she looked out toward the road, toward the line of shining bikes, and whispered, "I only opened my door that night." Rex's gaze softened. "Turns out, heaven rode right in." The words lingered in the air as the engines roared once more, not in rebellion, but in gratitude. And when the sound finally faded into the hills, Evelyn's farmhouse stood glowing beneath the stars, a beacon of mercy, proof that even the coldest winter can end in light. Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day.